It's nice if you can get two saw cuts going down side by side. Sometimes the distance is just sort of an awkward width where one blade only really goes in the middle, but you need to open it quite a lot both sides, but there's not enough space for two saw cuts side by side. But anyway, let's get a cut in there, and then we've got a few tricks to open it up. And the blade, be careful what angle you're cutting at, because you might be on the line perfectly but holding the saw at that angle. So as soon as you start sawing in, you're going up towards the top. That's no good. You've got to be parallel with that top flat. That's the direction you cut into. So be careful as you rotate it. Always cutting down, especially as you get a bit of depth going. Yeah, what I do is I mark out, I try and saw down the sides a bit. Well, I've got the line, sort of like a groove for my saw blade to sit in as a guide, and then I'll go back to the middle at the end, the sharp end, and then just cut straight into it and try and break through. And then once you've got a little hole there, you just sort of rotate it again and spread that hole around. So broken through now, it sort of becomes quite easy to cut. And that's why I like initially putting a kind of groove in it, and once you've got the hole going, it saws quite quickly, so it helps your blade stay in a good position. And something I've ended up doing just through experience is I don't just cut out a little bit, I cut quite far. I go past halfway, because when you've got two claws on here and you've got to cut that way, it's a little bit of a liability. You might accidentally just cut through it and then bang into those claws. So that's more likely to happen if you've got to cut right down and then you're going through right next to that claw. If now at this stage you cut right up towards the other two, when you break through, it's more friendly to you. You've got more space for the saw to move without actually hitting the claws that are already on there. Okay, show you my work before I move on. See what I mean? Like this happens all the time. It's quite common. Like I've cut just inside that line all the way around, and there's not really enough space next to it to cut without hitting that line. It's just typical for the kind of jewellery I make. So I end up trying to open up the hole down rather than trying to put another cut next to it. But on bigger stones you can do it, but this is common. Don't fret too much. I'll show you how to open them up. Okay, so as for opening up this hole, what I do is you sawed into it that way, yeah? Turn it around, go into it backwards. So we're sawing out away from the end. And then what I'm doing is I'm going up and down, and I'm skimming the side of the blade. Let me open up a bit. I'll concentrate on that end bit to show you. Maybe you can see it happening. See that? It's a good technique. It takes a bit of practice. I remember not being able to do it when I first tried it. Works better on a slightly thinner blades. Cut 3, cut 4. But yeah, you can open stuff up, and then you can also flatten things. You can take little bumps out of things. It's a useful technique, and I do it a lot, especially cleaning up castings. But if you're not getting on with skimming the saw, if you haven't got any thicker saw blades, these work really well, and I would go onto these anyway, even after using my saw blade, because they get it a little bit neater again. Paper discs, talk about them a lot on my channel, use them all the time. The brand, no one ever sponsors me, but I big them up anyway. These are Chemdent. You can buy them in like jewellery tool supply shops. Yeah, come in a box of 100. These are coarse. I do recommend getting the medium ones rather than coarse. They seem to be a nice mix of actually cutting really well and leaving a nice smooth finish. These are a bit too severe. Get it in my hand motor. You've got a nice rough buff stick. The cutting side goes underneath, so I'm holding it like that and just skimming a bit of an angle, and that turns the edge of it into like a blade. You look at it from the side, you can literally see it's like gone to a blade. You've got to be careful with these because they do cut really well. Because if you're not paying attention, you you can make a mistake and put a dip in it accidentally. If you want to make it easy for yourself, if you're practicing, doing it for the first time, just do it in a really big stone. So you've got a nice big gap, cut 2 cuts, and then all your needle files will fit in there. Just try and make it easy for yourself, and then do a neat job while it's easy. It gets more difficult, I suppose, when you're working on smaller stones. Looping it with the ×10, I'm not quite up to the line, but sort of there to there is quite good. So if it looks good under ×10, you know it's going to look good to the naked eye. So mine wavers off a little bit as I approach the end, so I'm just going to leave that because I'll wait till I can get my tools in the side, and then we'll join it up nicely. But yeah, that's good. And also you might be thinking, I was just talking about having the top thicker than the bottom. It looks better. That's going to be filed straight, remember? So all of this, at least that is coming off. I can't do it looking through the camera screen. At least that is coming off, and then on that side you've got the finger size, so there's going to be a tiny kind of like half shape going in there. So I think when it's finished, that's going to be thinner than the top. So these videos, all I'm teaching really is the techniques and the methods and like my strategy for actually putting together a ring. There'll be other ways of doing it. People do things differently. I just say what works for me, and then I kind of prove it on video. But as for knowing the depths and being able to look at a stone and appreciating an angle and what a claw needs to be and how far a claw needs to go in, the thickness of the claw, how far you should cut out the top of the bezel so the stone sits right down, and then knowing how it's going to finish and thickness of your bezels and stuff after, that just comes with experience. That's proper, that's like real knowledge. It's not stuff I can just tell you or write down and you can understand and then you'll know it. It's beyond that. It's actual knowledge from doing it. So yeah, just do it. You'll learn more than I could ever explain, put into words or show on video. Really important to actually do these things.